Well. Yeah, that was 17 to 131. Do you get stuck? Yes.
All right. It is 5:30. This is a public hearing regarding Mr. Wilson's application to continue the operation of his business at the current location, 110 Elm Street. The application includes a reduced scope of operations related to parking and storage of vehicles and trailers. But it is a continuation of business activities at that site. We will conduct this public hearing according to the bylaws of the South Thomas Zoning Board. It means that there's a little bit of an order today. The order will be that Travis will present his case first. After which there will be time for any questions. Questions for Mr. Wilson should be addressed to the chair. And then after Travis has an opportunity to present his case, any interested parties, members of the public have an opportunity to speak. And the hearing will close after all the members of the public have been heard. So let's make sure that I'm doing this correctly. Before we get started, I also wanted to integrate into the record. We have 3 pieces of correspondence that the planning board received in the interim period. We have 2 letters in support of Mr. Wilson's application from Amy Shepherd Sims of 22 Bartlett Lane, and one from Mike Giles, who operates the insurance building on the corner of Route 73. And then we have observations, very helpful and very detailed observations of 3 mornings at Mr. Wilson's business that Terry has compiled. And she went so far as to take noise readings. I encourage anyone who's interested to pick up a copy.
They don't have.
Yeah, there's extras.
Okay. There's more second pages, but second page is not too different than the first page. But it should all be available. So I just want to make sure we thank Terry for that careful observation. And while she's printing out the copies, maybe give the floor to Mr. Wilson to present the case that he's and present the application that he's requesting to be approved.
Yeah, so we're just looking to continue operation, as we stated, at a greatly reduced capacity. I know in the past, there's been noise complaints, slamming tailgates, backup beepers, so on. All that's related to material storage at the site, which we are no longer doing. I think been doing we're just looking to use the office space and park trucks and trailers for dispute.
Understood. Are there any questions from the public regarding Mr. Wilson's statement?
Hours. 6 days a week.
Pull up the application here. I believe so. But I am double checking.
would like to start just to verify. You want to continue the current operation in reduced capacity and you want to start a new activity there, is that correct?
Not a new activity, that's a different application.
Okay.
And to answer your question, sir, it would be 6 days of the requested operating hours are Monday through Saturday, 6 AM to 6 PM.
6 AM.
That's correct.
As I understand this, is for parking all the vehicles there.
Is that correct? And trailers, I believe.
Aren't they parked if they need to?
We don't have an office space or we don't have office down there. People come to work, get assignments, take trucks, go to work. We have no security at the other property and we don't have an office there. It logistically does not make sense for us to do that.
Understood.
The vehicles are the major source of noise now. Going and coming with the vehicles. And I don't see that's just part because it happens all day long.
Maybe I think we can switch to the next phase of the public hearing where members of the public can make their statements in just a second, but I think maybe Travis, what makes sense to clarify is by parking of vehicles. How is that parking used? I assume what he's hearing is, occasionally a vehicle will need to be
Yeah, we might,
anytime.
Employee shows up to work in a company vehicle, so we own 20+ vehicles, but we have 9 employees, so
Mhm.
not all 20 vehicles. They show up, sometimes they leave in the truck that they showed up in, sometimes they might hook up to a trailer, leave, jump in a dump truck, leave. Occasionally throughout the day, we need to swap trucks, but there's very minimal activity that happens at that site. We're not going there to get material, we might go by to get there, could we store like our pipe and fittings there.
Mhm.
Somebody might go by to grab some fittings or pipe, someone might go by to grab a little fabric, but there's no material like dirt, gravel, rocks that are being loaded, being unloaded, being dumped, being in any way, shape, or form moved around with equipment with backup beepers, like might hear a backup beeper periodically to back up to a trailer or to park a trailer, but there isn't a constant source of sound. There's very rare source of sound.
And I just have one more question, is your ambition to eventually move that whole operation over to the new site when you have the opportunity to develop the infrastructure that you need?
Yes,
When will that happen?
I'm not putting it that, but
So I didn't hear your answer.
I said, yes, we're gonna be moving down.
Okay, but you don't know.
I'm not putting a deadline to it because I'm gonna be here next year, then I'm gonna be here like. If I have life events that change my things, it's as soon as I can. There's actually, but. I'm not putting the town at the mercy of. Doing this over and over again. Because I parked a truck somewhere.
Understood. Okay, so any interested parties, abutters, members of the public who wish to make a statement?
May I submit an email that I sent to Terry back in February? I'm Linda Palmer and I live on 4 Homeport Avenue.
Mhm.
And the Wilson Construction Company was working on a retaining wall at the end of our street because of the erosion. I said, dear Terry, Wilson Construction at 1:18 a.m. Saturday morning on February 25th removed an excavator from the corner of Homeport Avenue and Route 73. We heard a dump truck backing up There were 2 cars with their headlights on and people walking around. We were going to call the police. And then on Saturday, the 18th at 7 a.m., they removed 3 to 4 truckloads of topsoil. They are doing construction at the end of Homeport Avenue. I asked who was overseeing the construction. The state of Maine and Augusta and the town of South Thomaston should be inspecting the work. The property that they were doing the retaining wall on the West Cape River was for Kyle Saxon and Dale Andre at 18 Homeport Avenue. There was erosion. We have a 10-foot right of way to the West Cape River, and there was serious erosion. And they for a month, we had dump trucks with large boulders and smaller stone coming back and forth to the end of Homeport Avenue. There were large, this is in February, there were large ruts in the road, and we were told that they were going to roll the road every day. Our neighbor, Irv Curtis, maintains the road and he does a wonderful job. But what they did, they had 2 excavators at the end of our street. And they had a roller. And this is what they did at 1:18 on a Saturday morning.
We did not work at one.
You certainly did. There were 2 cars, our house is right on the corner.
No,
There were 2 cars with their headlights and a dump truck back right in front of our property with a trailer. And they loaded one of the 2 excavators onto the truck. We should have called the police, but we thought maybe they were drunk or something at 1:18 in the morning. I don't know. But I'd like to enter this into your records because no one is policing them. They can do whatever they want. And my husband went down to talk to them. And an elderly man in a Wilson truck pulled up in front of our house and said, "My boss is going to rip your husband's head off."
Oh,
Yes, an old man in a Wilson truck said that you were going to rip my husband's head off.
you have proof, like, that's not our job. And that whole thing,
And I said,
there's an engineered wall that the state of Maine needed done. And generally, we plan that work in February because things are frozen. It's not our fault, it wasn't frozen. Still didn't get done under a timeline per Maine DEP. That's all an approved job. We do jobs like this and other companies do jobs like this every day of the week, year round. We weren't just down there doing really no work. There's an engineer from Barrel University. He walked out to prevent erosion. So this customer's land did not fall into the ocean. We weren't just doing work, we were doing a contracted job. Through Barrel University for the DEP.
Mrs.
and
Hall,
Irv Curtis's son, Paul Curtis, was working for the engineering firm that was hired to put this retaining wall up.
No, he works for. He works for DPI, not Barrel University.
in either case, I think, thank you for providing that statement. I'm sorry that you had an experience that was alarming, and we have accepted this into the record.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to make a statement related to this application? I'm not hearing anyone else wanting to make a statement. Is that correct?
I just have a question that,
Sure, please,
Okay.
go ahead.
so the year, the interim, when the code was not being enforced or whatever that we talked about last month. What has happened with that? I mean, is there any consequence or?
At the moment, we're considering a new application for continued use by Mr. Wilson of that
Right.
site. So the question that's before the planning board now is essentially separate from the question of that 1 year period. There was a short period of time after that 1 year period where the planning board had voted to give Mr. Wilson an extension on his permit. That was a vote that was taken in error and was rescinded. And as for what happened during that short period of time, the planning board of South Thomaston is not the body that's responsible for any enforcement actions. So we can't really comment on any actions of that nature. Apologize if that's not a satisfying answer, but that's not what we do. We respond only to applications that are before us. So if you wanted to make a statement, for example, about this application that's before us now, you would be welcome to do so. We would enter it into the record.
The lot that's right on the other side of Bartlett Street, was that still restricted from business?
To the best of my knowledge, there is no business that's currently approved to operate as a business on that lot. Because Mr. Wilson put in an application to operate a business on that lot and then pulled it. Is what I recall happening last year.
I've been sold, and that's, it's not a residential use. And there's trucks going and coming.
I think, I mean, I personally haven't observed business use there, but if you have observed it, you might bring it to the attention of the code enforcement officer.
And see-
I would say that would, because there is no permitted business there, that would be an issue to bring to Terry's attention.
Are you talking about the piles of dirt that are on that property?
Yes,
We went through that last year and Travis told us that's for his personal use for when he builds his road on that property for where he's gonna put his house.
but,
If it's personal, if it's for personal use, his property, he can keep it there.
that personal use.
I do things at a little bit different scale. I put my own driveways in, I have gravel to redo my driveway when I get time to do it, like, I can have my own material.
We have clear information as to how much ground area the new request takes up. You know, we have the one we're talking, well, the one that we're talking about now in the public hearing.
I don't know that we do.
One going bigger, it's not any increase. It's actually decreased, because we're not using the garage anymore for business use, we're not using certain areas. We're using less space than we were last year by a lot.
No members of the public have arrived. Not to put you on the spot right as you arrive, but this is the part of the public hearing where interested members of the public have the opportunity to speak. So if you wanted to make a statement related to Mr. Wilson's new application for continued use, this would be the time to do that and have it entered into the record. And just state your name and your address, please.
Yeah, it's Charles Coons, 118 Elm Street in South Thomas. So, really, this meeting shouldn't even be happening, because, last year, when the special permit was given, it was pointed out that it was non-permissible use of that property. There was a list of things that were not able to remedy. late noise issues amongst other things. So, Wilson was given a year, which is a lot of time. He said at the time that he had a new location with an acre cleared, and then soon he'd have 3 acres cleared. So, a year was given, a special permit, in order for him to have time to finish setting up for relocating the non-permissible business. In relocate. And now here we are. So it's still not a permissible use. I don't know if we're trying to redo the ordinance without a town vote. But now they're talking about a continuation of what was a temporary permit for somebody to move a non-permissible operation. And so now, I don't know why there's a discussion for continuing the permit. Nothing has changed. How has the use become suddenly permissible without changing the ordinance?
Can you, I apologize, but just so we have it, can you clarify precisely what about the use made it non-permissible, or what category of use we're talking about that was non-permissible? Just so we have your interpretation on the record.
Well, I would say, go back to the meeting where Irvin Curtis pointed out that it was not permissible use, and also gave a list of items that were not in compliance. And he even said, these aren't things that could be remedied, so they weren't even going to ask Mr. Wilson to try to remedy them because they weren't, he was not able to remedy. So.
We have any other statements from the public? I think that will close the public hearing then. We have heard from everyone who wants to speak. Heard from Mr. Wilson. And we will proceed, I think perhaps 5 minutes early, to the regular planning board meeting. We'll go ahead and call that meeting to order. 5:53. And do we have, apologies. Sorry. Do we have any public comment for items that are not on tonight's agenda? Or any adjustments to the agenda? I would adjust the agenda and just say that we should probably approve the minutes before we take up Mr. Wilson's application.
We should what?
Just approve the minutes of the
Yes.
last meeting. Does anybody have any comments about the minutes of the last meeting? Everybody read them?
Yeah.
Make a motion to accept the minutes of the last meeting.
Okay,
Second,
moved and seconded, further discussion? All in favor?
Right.
aye.
3-0, the minutes of the previous meeting are approved. That brings us to the performance standard review for Mr. Wilson's new application, which is our item of old business. And we can take that, we can begin that process.
No, I did it. Thanks.
One second. All right. I'm going to fill this out as we go along. 0, 21. Description. "110 Elm Street. South Thomaston." So we're gonna run through the standard performance standard document. Beginning with our determination of whether or not Mr. Wilson's application is complete. I believe that we found that it is, the possible exception of a precise or relatively precise area of requested use. I think we would like you to provide that, but we don't need that in order to consider the application.
There's a map, that I provided that has the
That's the-
general area that
you know.
they were even. I mean, it was the original. One from before, so we're not using the garage.
Mhm.
So part of that.
So it's allocated for,
Okay.
Mhm.
Do you have the original performance index? You do?
I don't have it in front of me. Do you have it?
I don't have it. I looked in his file and it's not in his file.
I'm trying to grab it from old email records. But I just wanted to, before we get into the nitty gritty of the performance standard review,
Of course.
I think we should talk about generally, how does what's being proposed compare to what was permitted before? Because that gets to whether it's a non-conforming use if it goes over the 10,000 square feet. Versus whether portions of this may not be permissible at all. So let's maybe take a pause and we'll
Sure.
try to pull that up. I don't know if you had, well, you were doing completeness, so you can carry on with that while I look for this actually.
I think that there is just a few quick things. This, because of the amount of use proposed, you're not proposing any new driveways, you don't need an entrance permit. You're not proposing to do any site work, so you don't need a DEP permit. Wildlife impacts, I don't think those are applicable, so I think, this application, we can consider it. We can consider it complete, and we don't need those other certifications in order to consider it. I will also look to see if I can find that whole the previous performance. They have only the one from last year
That's all that's in his file.
in my email.
So the original permit this is per the planning board's minutes from last year. The original permit allowed for a 25% increase in the business, which, you know, we grappled with at the last meeting. But generally, the advice I gave at that time was that could be a 25% increase in the number of employees, the number of trucks, the area of the land that it's encompassing. So if you got outside of that 25% in any of those categories, and if the current use gets out of that 25%, that's where I would say that to the extent it goes beyond that 10,000 square feet that's allowed, that it would not be able to be permitted by the planning board with this application. That follow?
Yes. So I think. It follows, so I think, I mean, maybe the most pertinent question is, Travis, can you accomplish what you need to accomplish on that site within 10,000 square feet? Of compact vehicle storage.
Where we park our trucks and trailers. Probably doesn't take up more than that.
I think that's gonna become an important question, because I think we are talking about more vehicles than we were talking about however many years ago that was originally proposed. So I think, and we can get there by going through the performance standards, but I think what it seems like a likely outcome is that
Well,
You'll need to-
we base the
Yeah.
amount of equipment and vehicles we had. Back in 2018 versus what gets parked there now. It's a wash. Because none of our equipment sits on that site. Our equipment sits either on job sites or on the property.
Mhm,
Half of the trucks don't sit at that site. They're not, they are at people, I mean, if I park. What we use right now to where we park trucks is well under that 10,000 square feet. I mean, obviously, we drive them through the lot and stuff like that, but
mhm.
what is housed at that site is. Similar in size to what was there in 2018. We had every vehicle we own, every trailer, every piece of equipment, everything stayed there. Now. All it is our dump trucks and trailers and. A handful of pickups.
Mhm.
There's probably 10 vehicles that are there. If you drive by at any given time. And that's what you've been, 2018, we had like 8 trucks. So and they lived there full time, people didn't have company vehicle, everything was there.
Understood, so I think. And my understanding is, I think what we need to determine is. As a board. You know, essentially, it's kind of a simple decision. If the proposed use is commercial less than 10,000 square feet. Then that is a permitted use in the zone. If it's commercial more than 10,000 square feet. Then because this is a new application and we did have this expiration issue. Then it's not a permitted use in the zone, and then we have to consider. You know. How that relates to the terms of your original permit and so on. Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel comfortable entering? Into the record that you plan to use. 10,000 square feet of that parking lot to store vehicles, and whether or not you drive through there. To get to that storage area. And I think that's just a driveway.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could. We could just mark off a vehicle parking area that's 10,000 square feet and. That's all that's used.
That would include the office too, right? That we would,
It would include the footprint of the office itself.
yeah, I mean, we would need the total commercial area would have to
Yeah.
fit within 10,000.
It's not that big of an office, but. Go ahead, sorry, in the back.
Yes, I include all the material as well, like the huge pile of dirt and other things.
If the piles of dirt are, I mean. Travis, you were contending that the piles of dirt that remain on that site are not for use by your
Well, I use
business,
them for the business at this current time.
so. But I mean, that would say that if those things are in excess of the 10,000 square feet that we would be allowing you, you wouldn't be able to use those piles of dirt for business purposes.
Yeah.
Um,
We have no, they're stored there for personal use. Years on the road.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
a good, that would just be a clarification to make sure that that's
So
something.
should it be part of the restriction, no materials stored there for business purposes?
That's,
He's not
that's in my,
Yeah, he's not requesting to store material for business purposes, in the application. So I'm going to enter on this performance standards, the proposed use is commercial, less than 10,000 square feet. And that will limit your area and something along the lines of what you said to mark out that area, so we can be clear that it's the area in which you're operating a business on site. That makes sense to you?
Yep.
And authorize. All right, it's one of these performance standards, so I'm gonna have to enter in a lot of information multiple times. 110 Elm Street. Map 018. Lot 002. This property is within the village district. Requesting a construction, vehicle storage, and office. It is commercial. Village. Village. How many acres is that property, Travis?
the total property is like 4.
At least one property is 4. Campground. You're not proposing any additional lighting.
No, no lights, no signs.
Outdoor storage of materials, products, and vehicles shall be screened from view. I think you are proposing to do some screening, is that right?
Yeah, we already bought trees.
So I'm gonna put, yes, we will screen vehicle storage from view. That just means we can hold you to that. But since you bought them already,
The trees,
So,
what kind of trees did you get?
green ones. I don't know. I mean, I can buy, make sure.
No, it's, when I drive by, they are those tiny,
No, these are, we bought like 8 foot. They're green or something.
okay, so something reasonable, yeah, okay.
you are providing sufficient spaces to eliminate on-street parking. That is correct. This is not an outpatient addiction clinic. The comprehensive plan does not recommend any zoning changes in this area, or any changes to the permitted use in this district. Those changes were already made in 2021. Let's see. So the planning board, this is where we have our additional conditions. The planning board may, in order to carry out the purposes of the procedure, require additional conditions, specifications, criteria, standards, etc. Such conditions may include, but are limited to, increased setback for this use. The state of Maine requires, what is it, 10 feet?
Speak up, Dave.
Sorry. How close are you to your property lines with that storage of vehicles, Travis?
For the storage of vehicles,
Yeah,
where at least 30 feet.
what does the board think about setbacks here?
Well, see, we need to help to.
Sorry.
To me, there is an issue of business, there is an issue of noise, so it's like, how can you set up a business so that, noise can be mitigated, so. Where is the parking area that you're organizing? Is it away from the properties or?
Yeah, it's closer to Bartlett Lane. That's where all the vehicles are parked.
So when I
It's
look
the-
at this, where are you gonna park your vehicle? In here,
Yeah, close to Bartlett Lane.
this here?
Yeah.
And there are houses here,
Yeah, I live there.
and there are houses here, and there are houses right here on Bartlett.
Yeah, I own that side too.
And right on the right, by that, there's square on the lower right.
There's where on the lower right, right
Yeah, that's
here.
where the employees, his
Yeah.
employees park.
That's where they currently, two of them currently park. This is where Mark Phillips is. Our trucks and trailers currently park here. We have some here. We do have two employees that park here. Me and my office, they're parked here.
So what's here?
This is field.
Okay.
That's nothing, that's the I own.
So when they come in with their truck, they go down this way and go here,
Yep, sometimes, I mean, generally it's down this way, pickups come through here.
and you say
Big
you
trucks.
own that lot as well.
Yeah, we own that one. Actually, the property line for this property is over here in the town has the right of way through a sale,
So the left is our property.
Over
Yes.
there, beyond this lot, correct, that's where you all are. Okay, so,
And our house is directly to the right of that building.
Okay,
here.
employee parking lot.
and what's this garage used for?
That's a garage.
Personally,
Personal use. And, so what you're proposing is to limit all this area to 10,000 square feet.
yeah, all we're using is the office, where we're parking next to the office, and then a designated area. In the rear lot to park trucks and trailers.
And,
Can I just ask a question to the folks who are complaining about the noise? Is the noise issue that you are experiencing related to the use of that upper parking lot? Or related to the use of the lower parking lot? Both.
So it's, folks come to work, you know how it is. A lot of guys, they come to work, they're blaring the music, they got the loud trucks. Not all of them, but some of them. So what we're looking at is 6 AM to 6 PM, 6 days a week. If you say, okay, we've got to deal with guys coming in at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, some people are respectful, others are not. The dump trucks firing up, idling, going in and out, up until now, loading and unloading product in the back. Piles of dirt being emptied out right on our property line. And then in the winter, there's snow removal going on, there's trucks coming, unloading snow out back, after storms, during storms. So that's 6 AM, 6 PM. You're saying, you're gonna say it's okay. Doing, heavy construction work 6 days a week in the middle of a village with people's homes abutting it. And I would say that's okay, like, if you wouldn't mind putting up with that. But if that wouldn't be acceptable to you. From 6 AM to 6 PM, 6 days a week. And I don't know how you could approve it.
so the question is, does this all fit within the current ordinances? Okay, and then beyond that, is there a way to improve things from one good neighbor to another? Given the limits of the ordinances. So we want everybody to be happy, we want, Travis to be able to run his business, obviously. He was there. if he has grown, so we congratulate him on that, but at the same time, I understand it becomes a nuisance on the people living near him. And I'm really sorry for that. I can understand how, destructive it is. So is there any give and take, any room to maneuver anywhere?
I think, I mean, what we can do, I think one thing is, we can talk about the location of that vehicle storage within the site to keep it as far from,
It is as far away from any house as we can make it.
I think that's
It-
important, so I think we'll want to make sure we write down that that's the piece of the property that you use, and I think I'm wondering if there's a way in which the parking could be.
Terry's
Yeah.
witnessed where the trucks are parked.
Yeah,
It's
no.
as far away from any house as we can put it on that piece of property.
I'm not questioning that, I think. One question, is whether the parking for the office and the vehicle storage could be consolidated in that area as opposed to pulling in so close to their house?
I mean, yeah, the employees, there's 2 employees that park close to their house. They'll be moving, actually, they were supposed to not be parking there anymore, but
Do they park cars or trucks?
just pickup trucks, just
Trucks,
regular
yes, so.
pickup trucks.
And I'm reading Terry's report and it seems like they're in the habit of idling the vehicles instead of shutting.
For like 10 minutes, you need to build air pressure in order for the vehicle to operate.
Yes, but if it's 10 minutes followed by 10 minutes, 5 times 20 trucks, that's.
It's not like 20 trucks. You've read the report, there's like a couple trucks that leave there.
And they idled for like 5 minutes. And most of the traffic came
Is
down
out
Bartlett Lane.
Yeah, okay. All right, so.
So I think
you know,
in this section of the performance standards, which is the setbacks, it's not perfectly set up to capture this, but I think we would recommend, if possible, that lower parking lot that's further away be the parking lot that people working in the office also use. If
Yeah,
that's acceptable.
well, the office parking is up next to the office, away from their house. Is
Yeah.
like
Okay.
the garage, and the garage is in between where those 2 or 3 vehicles park and where they are, and they're just passenger vehicles that literally pull in and park there for the day.
There's
No
nothing
people.
there's nothing between their parking and our house. The garage is to the left of the block.
Where I park, there's a garage.
Where you guys park, the garage.
And I just said that those 2 trucks that park there are gonna be parking there.
We appreciate that. I think that's, what the simple things that we can do to just organize it so that there's less noise at the houses.
And
the
yeah,
best-
I could produce a map for Terry of what we plan on using for parking. That's under,
Please do submit that. And we can just enter it into your file so everyone understands. We can make it publicly available as well. But I think. In this section of setbacks, I'm gonna make a note. Instead of this number of feet, I'm gonna say. Consolidate. Parking. As remote. From. Adjacent dwellings. As possible. And submit map.
actually, just that one thing,
Okay.
one of the letters that was submitted by the insurance company.
Yes.
and Approval of the company, he is the closest one to where we park all vehicles.
Understood.
And there is no trees or anything between where we park vehicles, where vehicles idle. And his property.
So then that brings us to, water impacts. There are no water, we're not talking about water impacts. In the next section is visual screening. I think we discussed, that you are planning to install visual screening, I would say that screening plants and trees, if they're dense enough, can also help mitigate sound.
Sure.
So I think I would recommend, and I will add in this performance standards, if it's okay with you, that, you know, if it's possible to do so, increase the density of plantings.
Plantings, or I don't know if there are any material that can be used for fencing that would, you know, absorb sound.
Just try to block some sound as well, if you can.
Yeah, we did take some decibel readings. Myself, and with 3 trucks idling at, property line mark, it was like 48 decibels.
Mhm.
And us talking right now is 70 decibels.
I think, I mean, it's almost, I don't want to be like dismissive, but I think that it's less about the decibel readings and more about what we can do to improve.
I agree, I just wanted-
Conditions.
yeah.
Yeah, I know, I appreciate the tech
I
data
took
as
some
well.
time and was checking, but that is, I mean, we have trees that we purchased that need to be planted, and we're planning on purchasing more, so. We're already invested in
Great.
screening.
So reduced visibility by trees. We are not requiring a fence, but I am going to add additional plantings to reduce sound transfer. That's the language that I'm including in this.
Is there any way you could be more specific about that?
Additional plantings.
Usually we try to say, you know, more specifically, the number of plantings or the
And
location.
dense
The
foliage
size.
is really important.
I think honestly, without the planning board performing a site visit, it will not be possible to adequately specify the plantings required. Is there a way?
We can only recommend something.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could do one of two things. You could continue the hearing for the applicant to come back with a planning plan to provide additional buffer that you would then sign off on or not. Or you could do your site visit and make more specific recommendations of where and what type of vegetation you want to install. But I would encourage you not to just say, plant some more stuff, because then when some stuff is planted and it's not good enough for
Open for
everybody,
interpretation.
the question is whether it can be enforced or not.
I can come back with a planting plan and a parking plan.
That might, and I was actually hesitating to say the same thing about the parking plan. The planning board really should be looking at that before finding.
Yeah, I think maybe if you don't mind, Travis,
No, not at all.
that would be, that would improve the clarity of the proceeding. So thank you for chiming in with that, Kristen, that is going to help. So I think actually that what that means is, we can continue to go through this, but that does mean that a final vote on these performance standards will take place in the next meeting instead of this meeting. But I think if we might as well finish going through these, because in case there's anything else that you would want to add to those documents, we want to make sure that we have an opportunity to give you a chance to think about those. Hours of operation is the next one. Apologies, it's actually operations, clientele, population, number of employees. I think that's on the application. Is that correct? You have it, Catherine. I only have one screen at a time on this thing.
I have a performance review, I don't have the old one. What are you looking
I have.
It's like, so the Monday to Friday. And 6 AM, you're firm on that.
Saturday.
This Monday through Saturday.
Yeah, but like on the reviews, it's Saturday and Sunday, and we can separate the days of the week from the weekend days. Yeah. I don't know if you're looking at the same thing as I am, but
I have the current application. Says 20 employees, Monday through Saturday, 6 AM to 6 PM.
That was the last one, yeah, We have like. We have 9 employees right now. Won't have, I think the application I sent in said like 12 employees,
13.
13.
Currently 13, yeah.
Yeah, we have, that was when we had some summer high school help for mowing, but right now we're at like 9 or 10. And that's where we don't plan to.
But you do request up to 20.
That was last year's.
Oh, yeah, sorry. It is on the current one too. Maybe you just didn't delete it.
Oh,
It
yeah.
says up to 20, currently 13.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we won't have more than 13.
So 13 employees. And this section is just about staffing, so we'll be very clear, and then we'll talk about hours of operation afterwards. 13 employees. Security, what security system do you have there? Do you have cameras?
No, it's just right in front of the house.
It's right from his house. So that's NA. Hours of operation, so you're requesting 6 AM to 6 PM Monday through Saturday, is that correct?
Is there any way you can change that for Saturday, make it,
We don't work Saturdays. That's in there, so if we have to do something, I'm not called by the code enforcement officer because I'm in violation because we pull the truck out of there. We don't work
all right,
Saturdays.
so since.
We don't work past 4 PM generally, but sometimes the truck gets stuck on a job site and it comes back a little late. We work 7 to 4. I show up to the office at 6 with my general manager. First employee shows up at 6:45.
Can you make an exception for Saturdays, we start it a little later at least?
We don't work
Yeah,
Saturdays, but
so
if we,
that's the
if,
point, but we need.
but
to
that's
do
the thing,
something
if
to
we
pay
need to work Saturday to go finish a job, the truck driver's gonna get there at 6:30 and he's gonna leave.
for. Would it be a big problem if he got there at 8 instead of 6 on a Saturday?
When you're trying to get something done and you're trying to haul dirt from a pit to a job site, 2 hours is a big difference when. You're trying to get things done. We only come in on Saturdays when it's an
In
emergency.
the winter, when it's there, dark and everything.
And plowing, you're doing plowing?
No.
And those operate, that falls within those hours of operation.
Yeah, we don't, our plan is to have same result on that premises.
And the trucks you use to plow will come within.
Everybody takes them home, like it's nothing's there.
Got it. So
Well,
that's not a service that even if you're providing that service outside of those hours, you're not doing it at that site.
correct, yeah,
Understood.
yeah, everybody who's plowing takes the company truck home. Might somebody drive by the office to go to the bathroom or something, but there's no work. Going on, we won't be loading sand or salt there,
6 AM to 6 PM. It's not daylight only. Federal or state holidays, I assume, yes. Same time. Number of off-street parking spaces.
Can we go back to that? It
Yeah.
sounds like, again, like you haven't resolved that issue, right? So. Would regular business hours maybe make sense? That. The regular business hours would be Monday to Friday. 6 AM to, it sounds like it could even be 4 PM from what the applicant's saying.
Again, what is allowed within, the ordinance, there is what he had. And, is there a justification for changing what he had?
So you're saying that we could specify regular business hours of Monday to Friday, 6 AM to 4 PM. And then. Anything else is an emergency case,
Or at least an unusual case.
or at least an unusual case.
So if it turned out, for instance, that, 40 out of 52 weeks, there's activity there on a Saturday, that would go beyond, I think, what's regular business hours. If it turned out that 3 out of 5 days a week, they're there after 4 PM, that would turn out to be regular business hours. So I think it's clear enough to be able to enforce it if you were to say that. And I'm not saying it has to be 4 PM or that it has to be nothing on Saturdays, but I think the board definitely has that discretion under the ordinance, and especially where the applicant's telling you, we don't work on Saturdays, we don't work after 4 PM.
I think in that case. We could specify then. Much as Kristen said, like that, regular business hours. Are as such, and then. Operation on Saturdays and after 4 PM. Would be. In special cases only. Rarely.
Well, in that case, then I'd prefer to do. I mean, I'm fine with that, do like 6, but like to 5. Because
to 5.
sometimes, you know, we might. Farm road crews are getting back at 4:10
Yeah,
and they're going to the office to wash, you know, we have a few guys that go in and wash up for 10 minutes and then they're not leaving, they're done work, but they're not leaving the premises till 4:15. I don't want it to be a thing where we're getting,
And you have absolutely no flexibility with the 6 AM, not even half hour, like starting 6:30 to 4:30. Move your day so that it corresponds
no,
more
because
to.
I have an hour to meet with my general manager in the morning before employees show up. That's crucial business operation. But 6 o'clock is not equipment moving, the trucks moving, it's 2 pickups parking and 2 people going into an office.
So I have here Monday through Friday, 6 AM to 5 PM, hours of operation. Saturdays and special cases. Same time, but only special cases.
May I?
Go ahead.
As you're sort of writing these things in, is it possible to say that from 6 to 7, there's to be no idling of trucks or large equipment? It's for just regular vehicles?
I don't know that that's what's being represented by the applicant.
No, because there's,
I think the applicant just said from 6 to 7, that doesn't happen. There are no trucks, it's just him and his.
there is occasion when if we have to go haul from the pit, a guy gets there and he's starting his truck at 6:30.
Sure, so on occasion, you go from 4 to 5. So the board is saying, well, maybe what we can do is occasionally, we're gonna push this hour back, okay, well, how about pushing an hour on the beginning side of the day? If people are gonna give you a little leeway on the end of the day, how about you give a little leeway on the front of the day, especially since you just said that from 6 to 7, it's just you and him.
I'm not gonna do that. Because there's occasions when we have to do things. It's not I'm not gonna get into this nitpicky where. All of a sudden, if there's a dump truck that starts at 6:58, Terry's getting complaints. I'm asking for very minimal in comparison to what was there.
I think what you could do on this one is just note in your findings that the applicant has represented that idling will be rare during the 6 to 7 hour. And the applicant has always held to the representations they make to you when they come in for an application. And so, to the extent that ends up not being true, there'd still be a violation, even if you don't really specify it very clearly in condition. And then the alternative is to do kind of like what you're talking about on the 5 to 6 PM and Saturday, and try to define what rare is, and make that a condition.
I know, so rare, what does rare mean?
I think so.
You could say that idling of trucks during the 6 to 7 hour shall be minimized.
That's a fair statement, I think.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead, in the back.
It's not, so you're talking about the trucks idling, so first of all, you can feel them in the ground, but it's not so much the decibels, but. And we're not just talking about trucks idling, at 48 decibels. It's, there's a lot of activity going on involving, backup alarms. And backup alarms are meant to be loud so that they get your attention when the vehicle's backing up. So throughout the process, different parts of the day, including in the morning, you've got backup alarms going. And it's like having a loud alarm clock.
So ideally, there would be a rotary so that the trucks don't have to back up.
They back into their spaces so they can pull out forward in the morning.
You're gonna back up
It's
to the
not,
trailer.
it's not the trucks
That's
that are doing the backup. It's vehicles that are loading the trucks and.
There's no loading of trucks, there's no material storage, no dumping of material.
In the winter time. The trucks.
I just said there's no sand or salt being stored there, it's gonna be stored at other locations, so there's no loading of material.
Well, I'm talking right now, so we can wait on some. In the winter time, the guys come in. The trucks would load the hoppers with salt and sand or whatever.
Yeah, but
So,
he said
and we-
he has moved that operation, so that's the move,
Their trailers.
problem, because that's not going to happen. So at least that's progress,
Well, what we said last year was.
But now he's done moving all these material, he said. And the only material left is for his personal use, so that's not gonna be an everyday occurrence, if at all.
Well, last year when we had the meeting, he said he was moving his operation to the new location. And after the meeting was over, the presence increased. It stayed the same or even increased somewhat at our location. So the point I'm making is, he has said things last year, and that simply wasn't the case as the year progressed. And I think the other voters can attest to that.
There's
And
no
that's
other
what
butters here.
So the attorney is talking about clarifying things and defining things. Because this is the problem, you know, you're talking about leaving a lot of things on an emergency basis, open-ended. That gives a lot of leeway. That means somebody can do kind of whatever they want. And then you can just say, oh, it was a special situation.
So how do we,
What I have here written down is that, you know, the applicant indicated and represented that idling of vehicles between 6 and 7 AM is to be a rare occurrence, and I also wrote idling of trucks between 6 and 7 AM and backup alarms shall be minimized. Or maybe we could just say, what equipment that could possibly be on that site under this current permit is gonna have a backup alarm?
Dump truck,
Only a dump truck.
they're not getting loaded there, all they do in the morning. Is take off. They might back up to a trailer. And hook up, so that's gonna be a backup alarm for about 20 seconds, and it's directed at my house, nobody else's. All the trailers are parked towards my house, so you have to back towards my house.
You say dump trucks would be loaded there?
No,
I believe what would be permitted under this application is just somebody getting in the truck, turning it on, attaching a trailer and leaving, so it would be loaded somewhere else.
is there any way that could be done in the evening before?
what,
Like attaching the trailer to the dump truck?
who knows what transpires overnight? Sometimes we get a call first thing in the morning
No,
for,
okay, so you don't know from one day to the next what you're gonna
I mean,
do.
generally we do, but if things change real quick. And if our dump truck driver parks at 3 and goes and works in the shop, and my operator who leaves the job site at 4:30 says, hey, I'm gonna need this in the morning. The dump truck driver's already parked, he's already doing something else.
Okay. So we can revisit this at the next meeting when we vote, but right now we have 6 AM to 5 PM Monday to Friday. Saturday. Same hours in special cases. Applicant will indicate that the applicant has represented that regular work does not take place on Saturdays. Um. So, you go ahead.
So. Once again, we spoke last year. This was a municipal use, not the appropriate location. He purchased a spot, said he was moving this. The new and large business to the new spot, which was appropriate for that business. And now, why are we talking about keeping part of the business here and putting part of the business over there? Instead of doing what Travis said he was gonna do last year at the meeting, which is move the business over to the new location, which was in a spot with permissible use. So I don't understand why, why we have to retain part of the business here. If it's an issue, you can see the issues that are being caused here. Why does the business not just go to the new location, which he said was gonna be 3 times the size of what he needed? Said he needed 1 acre for his whole business. And he said in a short time, he would have 3 acres prepared. So.
I think Jeff has a comment.
Yeah, I just want to clarify something. This is a purely permissible use, has been. He's been doing it there since 2010. 2018, he got a permit because the town required commercial business to get a permit. Permissible use. Everything he's doing there is permissible. Anybody who buys that property or any property there can do a business. The only thing that is even gray, and in his case, it's very gray, is using more than 10,000 square feet. That change happened after his permit in 2018, it happened in 2020. He was grandfathered. He has been working to appease folks, although he had no compunction to do so. He was grandfathered to 10,000 acres, completely permissible. So saying that it was impermissible is absolutely wrong.
Well, I'm mimicking Urban's words from the last meeting where we agreed.
You weren't at. so.
Yeah, we initially discussed it.
Go to
He
the,
said,
don't mimic people's words, go to the ordinance. That tells you what is permissible. And a commercial operation, less than 10,000 square feet is permissible. And that's what they are currently working on, that permit. To operate that.
And I think and thank you for clarifying that, Jeff. And I think another thing. If there's another way to look at it, and I appreciate this, I'm, just voicing another. Size, you could say he's promised to move his business and he's moved and he has successfully made significant steps towards moving his business. And I understand that you're not satisfied with the degree to which that has taken place and the speed at which it has taken place, but I think it's not true to say that it has not taken place at all. Because, we see the Wilson trucks working over there, we see changes happening on that site, we understand that you have your material store there, so there is. I think there's just another way to look at it, which is that this is in progress.
Yeah, and I'll add one more thing, and that is, you asked earlier for this board to deny this. That's not within their purview. They have to go by the ordinance. The ordinance says this is a permissible use, so they have to say yes.
then why did we have the meeting last year?
I don't know.
Why was there a meeting last year? Why was he given a special permit for a year?
I don't know that he was, but I don't want to go down that last year. Talking about this permit today. This permit today. They cannot say no to, they can only put restrictions, and that's what they're trying to do, is come up with restrictions on this permit. So I think we're gonna let them get on with their business.
And there are just a few more things here to review. And then we will return to review Travis's updated plans with a little bit more level of detail next meeting. So signs, you're not asking for a sign, not applicable. Noise will not exceed 65 decibels the nearest property line. That is definitely a requirement. Operations shall not create emission of dust and dirt behind the property line. I think that will also ask you not to do that, but I think just keep that under control. Odor control, I don't think have questions about odor control. So vibration conditional requirement, use of rock crushing screening equipment. Even though I know you're not planning to do that, I'm gonna say that we're not gonna allow that. Just so it's clear. That's not applicable. Additional concerns by the planning board due to the nature of the operations, not listed above, related to nuisances. I think, you know, we are hearing consistently that there is a perception of nuisance among certain abutters. I think I'm going to indicate that, you know, in here, or, you know, pending the review of the parking plan and the planning plan that. I'm gonna say this, I want to say basically like. Take all possible steps to reduce noise and disruption, but that's not, I knew you were gonna shake your head.
Sorry.
But, or perhaps like. Steps to reduce noise and disruption as delineated elsewhere in the performance standards.
Yeah, I'm not hearing any other complaints of nuisance besides noise and vibration.
Yeah,
And I think you've already created specific standards, specific conditions on those points. So I don't think you need to say that much more as to nuisance. While I'm talking, I just want to be clear, you can deny a conditional use permit if there are no set of conditions that would make a use compatible with its neighbors. So I want to make sure the board isn't, I'm not suggesting you should with one, just as a general piece of guidance. There are particular, because commercial use is just one super broad category. It is possible that somebody could propose a conditional use that just, it's too obnoxious for where it's located. And so I think you always should work under that parameter that, yeah, there's a line that could be crossed, that it just can't be fixed through condition.
we have adequate capacity on the roads. I think that's been demonstrated. No driveways are being added. No other approvals are required. No other licenses are required. You have adequate fire department access, I think so. Comply with the state of Maine provided guidance for erosion control, groundwater monitoring. You're not doing any fuel storage, are you, on that site? I think that's not applicable. Sewage facilities, you do have a sewage facility there, right, for the office.
Yeah, I provided Terry with a
We saw,
subject plan and a review from.
We thought that.
Soil scientist.
So I'm just checking the box here that says you're gonna maintain and keep that sewage system inspected. All other federal and state requirements. And I think, you know, at this time, that's the sort of end of the performance standards document. I think what we've agreed to do is request, Travis, that you provide a proposed planting plan for both visual and sound screening at the borders, and a plan indicating how you're going to where you're going to park your vehicles and how that fits into the 10,000 proposed square feet. And that's to be discussed. And the vote will be taken at the next planning board meeting. That makes sense to everyone? So I would say that this application will be tabled until that time. Thank you so much. We will move on into new business. Um. Almost able to rejoin the board, Travis, but you got one more, you have to sit out.
I'll pick the night off.
No. Okay, so I think the next. We have three applications that are new that we are just sort of that we're gonna introduce into. Ask any questions, and then those will also receive votes and performance standard reviews at the next planning board meeting. That's the standard operating procedure, so. In order, we have Travis Wilson. Who is requesting to use an area of the existing parking lot at his, is he part of the existing parking lot there? Or-
Nope,
No, it's the other
the
plot.
area across the street,
But you have a sort of cleared area there.
yeah, we have a cleared area.
And a leveled
that we're
area.
Gonna use for a stockyard. 2 years ago. Found out about the change in ordinance,
It would be this plot here,
correct? Yeah,
you know,
it
this
is.
one here.
Yeah, I know,
And then
It's
actually,
kind of Bartlett, like,
yeah,
how soon can you get that operating?
what?
Because if you park, you know, RVs and boats, that's gonna actually create a sound barrier for the people on that
Yeah.
side of the street.
so I think, and what we're talking about here is just using 10,000 square feet of that area.
Correct,
To park boats and RVs
Yes.
for a fee. Is that right?
correct,
Um,
very complicated.
and then, and so no structures are being built, You need to do any road improvements or anything to get that and stuff?
Yeah, we're gonna have some gravel there that we can use it to fix things up, but it's, you know,
Level and.
we don't have to do an entrance, it's already.
The entrance is already there, yeah. Okay, I don't think, does anybody have any questions about that?
That's straightforward. I actually give you credit for your entrepreneurship, like finding that use for that law. I think it's pretty good.
Okay. Paul Leach,
Yeah,
do I have? Paul Leach, 542 St. George Road, existing storage facility, is that your storage?
Yes, that's the name of the, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it is mine.
That's the trick question. You are planning to, you want to add a new storage building to that same property?
I'd love to, sir.
How many square feet of, is not strictly relevant, but how many square feet of building do you have on that site?
I have now.
How many of now?
What do I have now? Well, 1250 one building and 2,000 on another building.
So you're coming up to around a total of 6,000 square feet.
Yeah,
Um,
that's not much for storage facility.
yeah, it's not that much.
Yeah.
Okay. I think, we'll review the performance standards in more detail next meeting, but
It's just another building for storage with no use of water or, you know.
I guess that's best we go to the office, the cameras.
And it's going to be located in the back of the.
it's sort of along
I'm
the
gonna
road.
go up here closest so I can.
Yeah,
Sorry, yeah, so just give us a sense, so imagine I'm coming north on 131. It's sort of along the road, right?
Yeah,
It's not behind the existing building, but it's like further down the road.
yeah, going way down the road, I get 600 and something feet of road, fine.
Mhm.
I'm gonna use that and I'm gonna come back, see you, go out back in the woods.
If you're in support.
He already said what you can do. I've told this before, I'm in personal building, so.
I don't think we have
Yeah, I
a
don't-
question about that either. I think, like I said, we will like. Just because we can only tweak these meetings to a certain length, we try
Right.
not to review too many at once, but I think next meeting we'll go through the performance standards and talk more specifically about
Next meeting,
next meeting, yeah. We'll vote at the next meeting, yeah.
wow. My first meeting, my first number was 1 meeting, my second number was no meetings. That's what we're gonna be doing. Okay, see you, bye.
Thanks for the last one.
Insane.
And then we have Mr. Ratcliffe.
I think I need to excuse
You need to
myself.
excuse yourself, that's fine, yeah. Go ahead. Never so many refused. We swapped out our quorum. The last possible minute. Mr. Ratcliffe wants to add another storage building as well. Is that correct?
Yeah.
This is, because we approved a storage building, I believe, on this property some time ago, is that correct?
Yeah, I built one last spring, it was, a year ago, over winter, yeah.
And this is another building on the same property,
Yeah, I mean, just like, it's right behind it.
right next to it. That's what it looks like.
I believe they got the permit, some over winter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
I built in, the old thing, the black, the past flooring, the first one.
Okay. But again, I don't think I have any questions about this.
Yeah, it's very good.
And we'll take it up and vote on it at the next meeting if that's,
For the next meeting, speaking of which.
It's usually on the
The third-
third
third Thursday
of the month.
of the month.
Thursday, okay,
And
thank
it
you.
will start at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming. And now you can come back. And we can thank Jeff for his patience. And take up the kickoff procedure for the ordinance review.
I was really hoping you would have done that.
Thank you.
Suspect he's got.
So as I said last time, I think the most important part of the review of ordinances is the part that I'm a criminal person. Because the state has mandated, contrary to what all of our elected officials told me personally, that each town has to change their ordinances to be in compliance, and we have to do it by July 1st of next year, which means at our next town meeting, we've got to have the changes in our ordinance. It can be, in my estimation, it can be as complicated as we wanted it to be, or it can be fairly centered and focused and simple. Because the requirement is for us to allow for affordable housing and for our ordinance to allow up to 4 dwellings on one lot that previously would allow only 1. There's some very special exceptions to it, especially for us since we do not have city water or sewage. So we're all on wells and we have, so there's some help in that area. But like Terry has told me recently, somebody saw what the state had done and called immediately to build 4 little houses on their 1 acre land plot. And in mine, this is only for affordable housing, so I suspect that that person wanted to build 4 little houses to Airbnb those 4 little houses. And so I think we're gonna have some kind of rules in place that say, It's only for affordable housing and it has to meet the requirements that are in state law. They're very specific with what those are. But we don't want people building 4 little houses in compliance with this and then being able to charge $2,000 a weekend via Airbnb. So, having said that, I'll go ahead and turn it over.
So you know what I'm doing right now is I'm scanning through the comprehensive plan to look at what we've designated as growth areas.
Yeah, and we didn't call it a growth area.
Okay, so what am I looking for?
It's
And what districts would you call growth areas per se?
village extension.
Okay.
Because there we said you only need the half an acre per lot. Everywhere else it's a full acre. And in village extension, it was specifically designed for more compressed housing.
And it also allows mobile home parks.
And yes.
And that was not just in the comprehensive plan, that was part of the changes to the zoning map that we adopted in 2020.
Well, our current zoning, our current ordinance does have that area set aside for those.
So you think we can make the straight faced argument that village extension is the only growth area under the comprehensive plan in our ordinance? And that's good, because that's really what I've been advising towns is first look at your comprehensive plan before anything else. Because all of these changes that require this additional density are all in growth areas.
Good.
So I think for the most part, when we're talking about this stuff, we're talking, except for accessory dwelling units, we're talking about village extension, which I assume without knowing is a relatively small area.
Yes.
It is.
Great.
It's pink on the map.
And last I knew, this town had nothing on the books about short-term rentals.
No.
And that's the other piece of things that's sort of on the side of this discussion that has a lot of bearing on it. And maybe something we should talk about in general. I don't know what the current thought process is about short-term rentals in South Thomaston. But what is select board here from residents?
Yeah. For the town, I do think that the select board wants to limit the number of houses that are considered as affordable housing, extra houses, and to orchestrate that, to be able to enforce that. Willing to have some accounting of short-term rentals. I don't think they really want to go into. I know we don't really want to go into a heavy regulation of short-term rentals,
Licensing and inspection, that type of thing, right?
Right.
We don't have the capacity.
but we would like to know what's out there. And I think that's more as a tool to, so that people aren't building 4 houses and put them on Airbnb. So if we have an accounting over on this side of those short-term rentals, then we can force the other side. That's,
Is that as simple as requiring a permit from the CEO?
yeah, it can be. It can be,
I call it registration.
yes.
Yeah.
All you have to do is register, and if you're operating one and you haven't registered, then you're in violation. That doesn't require us to inspect it, it's just, we're gonna keep a roster. It also allows people, if they really want to be careful about the place they're renting, you know. I think it tells a lot about the owner if they follow the town ordinance and registered. And I've seen towns say that you have to include the registration number on any listing. So that if I'm filtering through rentals in South Thomaston, I can see, okay, this one's registered, this one doesn't look registered.
Right.
And that also helps us to enforce too.
I think, yeah, so then somebody whose property is subject to these affordable housing restrictions then would not be able to register those properties with short-term rentals. And that's how that would be enforced.
Yeah,
They
so,
come and they try to register it and then we would say no. Or they wouldn't register it and they would list it and then we would find out and it would be a violation.
Yep.
Got it.
so, let me tell you what my client, Aralsic did when we were working on this. This is a town that actually tell anyone, but they don't allow commercial use at all in their entire town,
Oh.
which is, you know, we're not gonna talk about that, but they have a very stark distinction about commercial is not allowed, residential is allowed. But in that kind of scheme of things, what we did was we tried to define Airbnb use that trips the line into a commercial use. And so I can't remember exactly the distinctions we made, but the long and short of it was if it's owned by an individual or an LLC that owns more than X number of short-term rentals in town, or if you have more than two in the same ownership on a single lot or lots in adjacent, adjacent parcel, that's all considered commercial use and maybe subject to planning board review, however you want to do it. In their case, they just straight up prohibited it, but maybe we want to look in that direction. That's the thing I worry about for small shorefront towns, for sure. I'm gonna buy a piece of land in the village extension. I'm gonna put 4 Airbnbs on it and take advantage of all of these bonuses to be able to do it. And the weird thing is, there's a lot of overlap in LD 2003, and all of us lawyers hate it because, you're looking at one provision that says you can enforce minimum lot area. Then you're looking, and that's in the one with the 4 housing units per lot, but then you look at the accessory dwelling unit section and it doesn't say you can enforce your minimum lot size per unit, and you're like, how do those two relate? But the point is, it's that 4 per lot that I think can really be exploited, and the ADU that can be exploited on this area to be used for.
And there is
for
no
rental.
restriction on the size of the lot?
Oh, well, there is, but in the shoreline zone, there's a significant restriction. So you've got to have 40,000 acres. And it's for sewage and water, right? So the LPI can't,
Shorefront.
you can't have more than one dwelling on 40,000 square feet. Outside of the shoreline zone, it's down to 20,000 square feet, same rule. But that's still, so it's pretty hard on a 1 acre lot to get more than 2, maybe you could possibly get 3, I guess, 1.2 or something like that, but so it's almost impossible to get to the 4, but you could have a 2 acre lot. You could have a 4 acre lot. You could have, and so that's where the proliferation will happen, is on those lots that are larger than a full acre. I mean, 1 acre is the minimum, but there are a lot of people that.
And there's some nuance too, because it actually doesn't say for the 4 units per lot one. It says you can enforce the minimum lot size requirement, but it's per the statute, not per your ordinance. And the statute allows you to go under 20,000 if you have like an engineered system that you get a waiver for from the state. So in theory, you could go down to like 12. Mobile home parks can go down even less. And then you get, I'm seeing a lot of tiny house developments that look a lot cuter and are more appealing to the short-term rental market. Or even to the long-term. And so you get those, they take advantage of small lot sizes and really crazy.
Could you build, apartments stacked up?
No, because dwelling unit is the determinant. And then how much water and sewage you can get, so it's purely a water issue.
Water.
So
So you'd still be subject, you'd still be able to, you could build an apartment building with 4 units on a lot of 3 acres, but
Yes.
that's all you could build.
So it's
I like
actually,
those exceptions.
Yeah. So I was just working on language for Searsport today, and I just, as a shorthand, pulled up what I was recommending for them, and I guess I'll follow that and go through each of these requirements and kind of think about what we might do here. So the first one is that affordable housing density bonus. Have you guys talked about this stuff yet? Am I educating you? I'm not repeating things.
Last meeting, I barely introduced it.
Okay, cool. So affordable housing density, what it requires is that if you have a density requirement, I don't even know that we do. So if it's, you're allowed to have 2 units per acre, as a density. That's a little bit different than having a minimum lot size per dwelling unit, although the math is sort of similar. If you have a density requirement, you have to allow 2.5 times the density for affordable housing. So I think what I might do there is we want to keep with the spirit of the law. And while we do have density, we don't have density per se, we do have minimum lot size per dwelling unit. And so for that village extension, because it only applies in the growth area, I think it's fair to create a definition of affordable housing. And then just write right in that if you're proposing affordable housing, you've got to comply with everything in the statute. And that will allow you to have 2.5 times the number. You know, I'm sure that affordable housing is actually a policy goal in the town. Right?
Yes, and that is.
Yeah, and so I think it's fair to find a place for it. And to try to comply with the spirit of the statute. And do what I think is the bare minimum. Which is to say, in that growth area. You can go up to 2.5 times. And there are a bunch of restrictions that are already in the statute that we've put in our ordinance too, so. Those would be, I assume we're allowing multiple family dwelling units in village extension. We can check. But that's one of the criteria that the district has to allow multifamily.
Fairly certain.
It does. So basically you multiply that by 2.5 or divide it by 2.
So you could, make it go 5.
Yeah, so you're gonna get 4 units on that acre where you originally would only be able
How does
to.
that work in the septic system? I don't know.
We still have to show that there's adequate septic and adequate water on site.
Yeah.
So that can be a limiter too.
That's just-
Multifamily is allowed in 3 of our 4 districts, everything but the village,
So there you go.
with planning board approval.
So the standards that are in the statute that we write into the ordinance are it's located within a designated growth area. So village extension or served by public water and sewer. We don't have that anymore. It's located on a property in which multiple family dwellings are permitted. It's located on a property that complies with the minimum lot size requirements. So that's the statute that I just referenced. It's usually going to require 20,000 square feet per unit, but if they can do a fancy engineered system, which a lot of developers are using, they can get more units on. They just have to be able to go to the state and get that waiver. They have to provide written verification that there's adequate water and wastewater. Like I was saying, that's what's going to trip some people up is the capacity of the well, capacity of the septic system.
So, the engineered system you're talking about, that's a wastewater system, right?
It is, yeah.
So. And how does that statutory density relate to our ordinance density? Like, does one of them overrule the other one?
Normally, our minimum lot size is going to overrule the state. But on this affordable housing piece, if they're proposing something that meets that definition, then the state minimum lot size law is now going to overrule ours. So as long as they can meet that state statute.
So it's almost like if we're trying to write into our ordinance an increase in density that matches roughly what the worst case for the state statute is going to give us, or
Correct.
or what the basic aspect of the state statute, but not the worst case.
Well, what we're gonna say is you have to comply with the state statute. That's all I would write in.
Okay,
Yeah, we won't say the minimum lot
Yeah.
size is 12,000 square feet. We're gonna say the minimum lot size is a half an acre. But you can, in this area, you can also do 2.5 times that per half acre lot. Based on the statute.
based on meeting the statutory requirements.
So what this is gonna look like is you got your table of uses. We're gonna have a new use that's called affordable housing development. We're gonna define that. The definition under the statute for affordable housing is that dwelling units are affordable to a family that makes less than or equal to 80% of the local area median income. And the way that is calculated is. Second. So for a unit that is for rent. That means a household's not gonna spend more than 30% of its monthly income. And then if it's offered for sale, it's the same thing. But it goes up to 120% of the median income. So. If you're offering units for sale, you can appeal to a higher income threshold than if you're offering for rent. So we have definition of affordable, we have affordable housing development as a category of use. If you meet that, then we're going to have certain standards that apply to affordable housing developments that are written in. I guess, I mean, the only thing that brings you to planning board review here is if shoreline zoning requires it, or it's a conditional use,
Or something.
or it's a subdivision. And
And I just looked at it. Our subdivision requires it if you do 3 dwellings, you have to get subdivision.
Yep.
So I wanted to make sure the state law said that it does. It's not just lots, subdivision isn't just lots, it's dwellings. So if you create 3 dwellings on one property, you have subdivided and you have to come to subdivision, come to the planning board.
Yep.
I don't think we have to change this subdivision.
no, you're not gonna change the definition of subdivision, so if you had, I mean, actually, the way affordable housing development will be defined is. It's 1 or more dwelling units that are affordable that are being constructed on a lot. So not every affordable housing development is going to be a subdivision.
Right.
Some of them may be able to just come and get a building permit because it's a single family or maybe a duplex would just need a building permit. But we'll have special standards for them because those are in the ordinance. And those special standards will include, you know, you can increase your density by 2.5 times per the statute. If that makes sense.
So how do we police what they're renting for?
So the way you police what they're renting them for, and this is one of the statutory provisions that will write in, says they have to have covenants on their deed. That require, you know, they're either going to meet the sale price restriction or the rent price restriction. They have to be in place for 30 years. And they have to keep records to show, you know, particularly if it's a rental, they have to show that they're only renting to people who meet that income threshold. And then they're keeping the rent.
Code enforcement officer would have to check up on to make sure.
Well,
That's full time, if y'all someone like this can happen.
this is why there was the bill to not have to enforce these things for towns for under 10,000 in population. And I had thought for sure that would pass and it didn't.
That's crazy.
You know, and so what it really means is there's gonna be a restriction in the deed on the property. Let's say, I own one of these lots, I purchased it as somebody who qualified, and 5 or 10 years down the road, I now, my property is appreciated and I want to sell it for market value. I probably have completely forgotten about all of this that applied to me when I bought the place. I list it with a realtor, it goes to title work and to be sold, and then somebody finds this covenant that's attached to it. And so for your part, I think it's just to make sure that that covenant is created and recorded. And then I would forget about it.
Okay.
In the sale context, it's always going to be picked up by title work.
But
The rent context, that's where, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, in theory, you're supposed to request records every once in a while, or you could have as a condition, they have to provide them to you.
yeah,
But what really is gonna happen is the people who are compliant are gonna send them to you, and the people who aren't won't, and you're not gonna be in a position to check on it. So I don't know what to tell you, but I think the point is just, you know, they get in and they put that restriction on their property and they're supposed to follow it, and if we find out they don't, they're in trouble. Just like so many.
I was listening, is there a benefit for people to build these low income houses? I mean, why would somebody build a low income house knowing they're going to get that much rent? They could just do it on the side and get all the rent they want. Why would anybody in my mind build anything? Like,
There are a lot of reasons. Number one, you can cram them in. So you can get, 2.5 times what you would get otherwise.
On the same lot.
On the same lot, on the same small lot.
Yeah.
And there's lots of incentives out there for
The
this stuff.
government side is part.
Yeah, you can apply for main housing grants, you can apply, there's, if you're a nonprofit, you can create these things and it's almost free because of all the tax credits. All the credits you get that you can sell.
Some benefit for the builders.
Yeah,
Well, like
there's a lot.
Section 8 will reimburse the property owners as well. Yeah. A portion of the, if your rent's $1,200 a month, then it might pay $300 a month, Section 8 is the rest story. So I know they're gonna pay at least, yeah.
See, in this case, if they build as an affordable housing, then they are not gonna be eligible for the $1,200. They're only gonna be eligible for $300.
Yeah, and I think the definition of affordable housing, in a town like South Thompson, you never know how it shakes out. So for instance, I have a developer client in North Yarmouth who is doing 3-bedroom townhouses, actually 2-bedroom townhouses. And her affordable units are $560,000. Great, build as many as you want, she's gonna make a ton of money off of it. And South Thompson, it might shake out the same way.
Yeah, that's the next question is, who's gonna do those calculations for us every year?
Like I said, I envision very little enforcement of it
Yeah.
after the point of approval. You get your first tenants in there. I could see Terry or her successor saying, hey, you gotta give me your leases once you get them signed. And after that, it's probably gonna be diminishing attention.
Well, there's also a requirement for certifying occupancy.
Yes.
And we currently don't do that for any other property, so. Restricting it to the village extension will help in that process, but it's still gonna be a new. And my fear is that the purpose of the certificate of occupancy is for the affordable housing aspect of it and the water aspect of it and the deed. But the creep is gonna come in is, is the town then gonna be held accountable for life and safety codes or any electrical codes or any of those other codes? That when Terry says, yeah, you can now move into this, is she implying anything other than it's meeting the?
No, it's not going to make us magically a MUBEC town.
Right. That's fine.
We can even create a special, you're not doing a certificate of occupancy on anything, right?
No.
So we just create a form that is an affordable housing, sign off sheet. Do they have their covenants in place and recorded? Have you confirmed rental rates? And then we can have a disclaimer right on there that says certification doesn't imply compliance with building codes or safety standards or something like that.
What I was gonna say is, he kind of asked my question, answered my question, and you made an example of a woman in Yarmouth there for 500,000. That's really not affordable. Maybe in Yarmouth it is, but I think the only way you can totally regulate these rents staying affordable and the housing being affordable is if the city or town owns the land. Somehow they acquire the land and build it from the ground up. And it's a city or town building. And then they control 100% who's going in and what the rent is and what the subsidy is. Then it's really affordable. Otherwise, it just becomes a game.
Yeah.
Yep, and I've got.
And the
loads of-
people who lose out are the people that really need affordable housing, which there's thousands
Yeah.
around here.
Yep, and
So
I've got
that's the only way you can totally regulate it, that you gotta go out and find land that someone's willing to donate or sell to the town chief, or work out some sort of tax deal with a buddy man and say, I'm gonna give you 5 acres here, you take care of me over here, and you can build an affordable housing complex here, and then the town regulates the construction, the maintenance of it, through a housing authority, and the rental income, and the subsidies they gain from the state. That's really
Just be
affordable.
clear, that's not. I mean, just to be blunt. that's not-
I mean, if you had a piece of property, and I don't even know if you do, but if you had a piece of property, you could do a watered down version of that, which is we're gonna sell it.
Right.
We'll help you get a CDBG grant, whatever other grants you can get, but you're on your own after that.
Right.
And, we're gonna sell it to you with a bunch of restrictions. You know, you gotta develop it in this way, and you gotta keep it affordable, and you gotta give us records, and, you know, that's easy enough to do, if it ever comes to that.
I mean, the housing is needed, so it really is to be a way to control.
Have
To
you guys,
keep what happens, like we just said, now that.
have you looked at what Knox County median incomes are?
I have not yet.
I was just gonna ask you, you said there's a formula to.
Yeah, it's,
Is that census data or is that more frequently collected?
it really comes from HUD, actually.
Okay. I guess I also just want to make sure so there's certificate of occupancy, process of enforcement. What about the, as we're looking at that, what about the ADU piece? How
Oh, yeah.
does that play into this?
Okay, $63,000, by the way,
It's the 80%.
is the median household income.
Oh, okay.
So the 80% is like 50.
Yeah, and it's probably a good deal higher than that, these are old numbers. So let's say it's 70. Take 80% of that, and then. But actually, no, well, for sale units, it would be 120. So, think of-
56,000 for rental and 84 for staff.
so I think we've covered affordable housing. So,
In process, you're gonna put some words down for us.
absolutely,
Okay.
yep,
Good.
I just want to kind of feel things out.
Yeah.
Make sure I'm on the right track about what we'd be doing.
Can I just, so you came up with 56,000 to 80%,
Mhm.
and then if you divide that, 56,000 by 12, that's $44,666 a month.
And then 30% of that.
1,400 a month.
$1,400.
Yeah.
It's
Decent amount.
affordable rent.
Affordable rent.
1,800 multiplied with.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, if you actually were to look in the market, that would seem really affordable. Most likely.
Yeah, and yeah, that's really right. Right now, it's hard to find anything. That's 25. We digress.
And I'd be curious to run the math on the affordable for sale with that. I bet it puts you at around 400, 400. Probably 3. At mortgage rates, what they are now. Because it takes into account the mortgage rates and everything, all in cost at the time.
What does it take into account for a down payment?
What it says is like the going, expectation. So if on average, area banks are requiring 20% down, it would do 20% down, but it's likely going to be a fair amount less because there are always particular programs that apply to the affordable set. Okay, so, ADUs. What that says is townwide. Anywhere where residential use is allowed, which I believe is townwide. You can have an ADU on property. So it doesn't matter how small the lot is, doesn't matter any other restrictions that you have. Except for setback. So you can require the same setback that applies to a principal structure to apply to the ADU too. You're not allowed to require any additional parking for that one extra unit. And, the
But that's-
only thing that the owner has to do is to show that, there's sufficient water and wastewater. They're only allowed to have one. Said setbacks. Required, they have to be at least 190 square feet in size. We can set a maximum.
Yeah, I was going to say, can it be bigger than?
Yeah, what I usually write is, a lot of towns are saying 850 square feet or 750 square feet, somewhere in that range. Would be the maximum, or X% of the principal dwelling. And so whatever you want to set that to be, you're allowed to do it.
Does that override the shoreline? Like it's,
Yeah,
so if I have a 45,000 square foot, 1 acre shoreline lot with 320 feet of shore frontage.
The water.
you
the
do.
sewer. So you still need 40,000 square feet. Sure. Unless you have the,
But if I just have my 1 acre, 43,000 square feet,
Right.
and I only have my 300 feet of shore frontage or whatever it is.
yeah,
So you don't have the, but am I entitled to an ADU?
I think you are.
Well. Dimensional requirements still apply. So if you're in the shoreland and it requires your 200 feet of frontage or 100 feet of frontage. You're still gonna have to meet that for the second dwelling unit. So you're still gonna need, if it's 100, you're gonna need 200.
Okay,
So that's gonna make most
Yeah,
situations with an acre or less, getting a second unit on pretty difficult.
Yep.
Would be the exceptional law.
okay, so it's not, it can't be overridden, it overrides a minimum lot size, but it does not override a dimensional requirement like a shore frontage.
Correct.
Got it.
Setbacks,
For the water.
frontage, water setback.
And for us, I think it's just a matter of semantics for us, because we already, except for in village extension. We already allow what we have termed a mother-in-law. So we've allowed a second dwelling
Yeah,
on a 1 acre lot.
Yeah, and my recommendation is gonna be that we scrap that concept and replace it with the accessory dwelling unit. It can be attached or detached. And we'll have a definition that, like I said, probably replaces that one. And then. The question is, what do you want to do about short-term rental?
and so that's my next question.
So you can say no rentals of less than 30 days
In the accessory.
in the accessory dwelling. This would be for newly established ones, so if somebody already has an existing accessory dwelling that they have on Airbnb, that would be considered a legal use.
Again, I don't really have an issue with short-term rentals. I just want to know that they're there. So. Personally, I didn't ask that question of the other two stuff. I asked the other specific, not that one.
I think that'd be worth asking to see what they think. I mean, this board can also chime
Yes,
in, but,
please, yeah, because you guys. And I just read somewhere, there was a change, one of the most recent changes requires that. I don't remember what it was specifically referring to, but it said. Authorization without planning approval, so they're trying to push it down to the CEO for all of these approvals.
Yes, the ADU piece is approved by the code enforcement officer. Talk to the board about this idea of maybe just even adding, if we have like a definition of lodging facility or category 4. And maybe we could say that it's a lodging facility if it's X number of units, like I was describing, within the same lot or lots, or if the same owner owns more than X units.
And then that comes before the planning board, and subject to additional restrictions. Yeah,
Commercial.
it becomes
Yeah.
commercial, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we have this
Essentially,
vacant
Jeff.
definition of something called a tourist home, so there we could fill it.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing. I don't have a clue what a tourist home is, but that
I've never seen one.
We haven't. Defined it. It's stuck in here.
Great,
Yeah.
I think that.
I
It's
sent you
very,
that language I wrote. for-
I don't want to say it's very clear, but I do think it's much clearer than it was.
Yeah,
It's a framework.
yeah, I'm feeling much better about. All of
Yeah.
yeah, I know. Seriously.
The reason you're feeling good about it is because unlike a lot of towns, did a very narrow growth area.
Right.
And there are some that just paid no attention to that concept when they drafted their comp plans and. Now they're in trouble.
Yeah, so if you don't have a defined growth area, that's.
Everywhere, yeah. So the capability extension.
So are you? Okay. And you're gonna put something together.
I am, what's the schedule we want to work with?
Their next meeting is the 19th.
I can't be here on that date,
Oh,
but
boy.
Herb will. So maybe we need to look at that. I
Yeah,
will not be here on the 19th.
yeah, because it would be, you're gonna be really busy at that next meeting anyway.
It's gonna be a,
Schedule.
Yeah, wouldn't it be better to do this on a night when we're not doing
Yes.
anything else?
And that you can be.
yeah, I think so, and I think,
Would make sense to push can we push next meeting up to like the 13th?
we can do that.
The Friday.
Or do-
For the
12th, I mean, 12.
Or do this.
I mean, I think.
Well, yeah, we can do something just with this as well, but I also know next thing we're meeting, there's a few things.
The 12th is.
Well, do the ordinance and then just do the regular meeting on the
regular
19th. I'd rather have you here for the ordinances than the
Yeah.
regular meeting. I mean, I'd like to have you here for both.
I'm fine, I could do. Yeah, I just can't do anything that week on the week of the 15th. So any other time,
So 12th is good.
12th is good with me.
There is no select board meeting that day.
It's the 10th.
Yeah.
Only one.
Okay.
12th is fine with me. And then the regular planning board meeting will be on Thursday, the 19th. And I'll miss it, or we could actually schedule that at a different time too.
Well, we told people it was going to be
The
the,
third
Third
Thursday, yeah.
Thursday.
yeah,
Well, I will make an effort to
So
tidy up this document that I was taking notes
Well,
on.
6 o'clock on the 12th.
The person who has the notes
I
about.
think so,
That?
yeah.
But it's gonna be. What, 4 performance standards?
Yeah, and
At
they were
least.
pretty stand,
Yeah, well, we have one
nothing to.
complicated one. And 3 straightforward.
Well, I'm gonna have to recuse myself for 2,
Yeah,
so I won't be here.
and
So,
Herb will be,
Well, but by boat, so he might not be.
fair enough.
Like, that's the only,
Oh, that's true.
he's gonna be here, but what if something happens and he can't, then the meeting can't happen
that's what I
anyway,
think.
whereas if
Did
we just schedule
say
it.
he would be here? So is he off the boat?
No, he said he would be here via Zoom, cause he was gonna be close, but that's. Hopeful, he was also gonna be here at the last 2 via Zoom.
Let me just read it quickly. So I think, I mean, just so we're clear.
COVID 19 is in, jeopardy because of not the quorum,
He said he will be in attendance in October.
Did he say they're getting a new satellite phone?
It's not something about Starlink. This is sort of thing. He said I will be
Fresh,
at,
if we wanna push it out.
I would-
November.
Oh, they're talking about the regular meeting.
Okay.
but I would almost.
We're gonna do it at 12
We're gonna do the 12th
Yeah.
for this.
Do you want me to be here in person, by the way, or should I zoom to that one?
Zoom is good for me.
Okay,
It's good
I'll
for
do
me.
it.
It's fine,
So the
so,
only one we have trouble picking up. So
and then the regular meeting
So we need to move it 1 week
to the 20, whatever.
to the 26th.
I mean, there's ample time to give people notice of that.
Yes,
I'll look.
Just,
Well,
if
we're
we
just
move it
here.
back versus
Travis is
up,
here. I'll just look.
Irv is more likely to make it.
yes, so all right, so I'll put it on the.
Oh, you think, so you were gonna say something opposite?
well, no, I think it makes sense if we move the planning board meeting back versus up, we're not giving people less time, we're giving
Yeah,
them more
yeah,
time to
so the
notify
26th. will work.
Yeah.
everybody who is here, who I'm sure is gonna wanna be here.
Yeah,
So edit 26.
okay.
I need to.
Okay,
That sounds great.
Okay.
That'll be the plan.
Now, the rest of this, I've given you some of the things that I know we need to at least look at. In the rest of the ordinance. And again, this is more to prod you, and hopefully you guys come up with stuff. And if you could, what I'd like you to do is add
Mr.
on.
President, put page,
Uh,
you should put the page number.
Oh, I can start doing that. I just wanted to get it started. What
Yes.
you guys thinking too, because I like your input on this as well. So on the email, oh, I just sent it. I didn't send it to everybody. I just sent it to you.
This one,
Yeah, you can send that.
I'll send it around, yeah.
And if you guys have anything that you want to add to it, just add to it and send it back to all of us. And
Yep, at the bottom of the list. We will do that.
and that's really to any recommendations you've got. Language that you've seen better, and especially the things that you brought up to us that we need to be added. And I think I captured.
Can I ask you, what did they say, add site plan review to the table or something?
Yeah, we have nothing in there about site. We don't do site. Although. There was kind of I think the CEO for a while was charging a permit for site. Not positive, but that's the whole part of that first two sections that said. There's a lot of things that are not covered in the ordinance that for years and years and years, the CEO has been permitting. Fences, demolition, there's several things. And I never saw a problem with it. I just felt that was part of the CEO's job and the select board. Put the rates, agreed on the rates every periodically. So they saw what the things were that the CEO was doing and what the rates were.
But we don't actually have something that says there's a building permit for all the other random stuff
Right.
in McDowell.
Yeah, we don't give that authority in the ordinance to either the select board or to the CEO to do something that's not in.
Okay.
And so there's two ways you can do that. You can either build it into the table of usage, you can put fences as one of them, or site plan review or demolition, or you can just say the CEO is authorized to.
I would just say for any structure, and I don't know if structure is properly defined, but for any structure that doesn't require planning board review, requires building permit from the CEO, here's the process.
Just do it as a blanket.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I were to overhaul things, I'd probably got 3 categories. You've got code enforcement officers, building permits. You got planning board site plan review, which is for anything that requires planning board review. And then you have conditional use, which is the stuff that's like, it doesn't really fit in. But if you do all of this, is the more conditional use type thing that we're doing tonight. Doesn't really fit in the zone, but if you do all these conditions, we can make it fit in and not cause anybody too much harm. So that's usually what conditional use review is. for exceptions.
I think
And then
under
the
the,
norm is you do site plan review.
I think under the definition of structure, it specifically excludes.
Excludes.
Then
fences. Yeah.
Probably, the- which is,
Structures and fences.
Yeah.
I mean,
The,
I would say
Definition.
avoid permitting fences, because that just gets you in the middle of everybody's boundaries.
Yeah. I don't think so. We don't need one of those.
I've got on here about CEO being the interpreter of the land use. I don't remember, I was watching somebody else's planning meeting. And they had a lawyer in there talking to him about, yeah, it's very important that you have in here that the CEO is authorized to interpret your ordinance. And I thought that was odd, because usually we tell the CEO not to interpret, but that's between them and the lawyer but at the same time, there's nothing in our ordinance that gives either the planning board or the CEO authority to read between the lines. I guess is kind of what I'm reading at. And it may be we don't want them to, but I think from at least one source, they thought that that was important. I think it was actually Rob, so maybe I'll throw that out.
we were just dealing with something along those lines. I can't remember what town it was, but it was the code enforcement officer was the one who interpreted the land use ordinance. And I can't remember what town it was.
Doesn't that put a lot of power onto the code enforcement officer?
I think this is a silly concept. You can't enforce or apply the ordinance without interpreting it.
Right.
So anybody whose job is to apply the ordinance, I think that would be the
Yeah,
CEO, the
so
planning board,
it's
the
the
board
code
of appeals.
enforcement officer's job to read it and go, well, this
Yeah.
either fits or it doesn't fit.
But well, that is different. It's the code enforcement officer's job to make a determination as to where it falls on the chart. And then the CEO sends it to the planning board when it's in her sole discretion, determined based on what the planning board has discretion to review. That could work.
Okay, and that may very well fit.
But the way, I mean, without that language, the way it works is the CEO receives the application. She makes a preliminary determination on whether it goes to the planning board. And then the planning board goes through that jurisdictional analysis. We have jurisdiction because this type of use and on the chart, that we review it. And if we think, oh, well, she made the wrong call, we're gonna say we don't have jurisdiction, we're gonna send it back to her.
I don't mind doing that.
Thanks, Gabe.
They're just gonna go, don't need to do it.
Okay.
What other issues? I mean, home occupancy is by home occupancy and home occupation.
Yeah, that home occupation is. Yeah, we've got, one of our uses is home occupation. And we have it for planning board in all the areas and I know this crept back in when we reloaded it. And the reason it crept back in is because we were doing away with not industrial tradesman shops. And we were requiring now all commercial uses to come to the planning board. And the CEO at the time didn't want to try to figure out which one should and shouldn't. So he said, push them all to the planning board. But the more I've been thinking about it, home occupations, I'm not sure that's
Well,
really.
depends a little bit what kind. And so I don't mind, I don't know, I'm generally of the opinion that like. Even if it turns into something that's easy for us, like, we might as well see it. I don't know, I'm feeling cautious that way, but.
And we're still in that honeymoon, but we still haven't gotten a good picture of all the commercial operations that are going on. And what this does is this pushes all commercial operations to the planning. So you see all.
Yeah, I'm into it.
I think that makes sense, because if a beauty shop on its own, under 10,000 square feet, it has to come to the planning board. Why would that not be the case if it's attached to somebody's home?
Yeah.
So that beauty shop caused a whole lot of trouble.
Oh, God. I just pulled that one out of nowhere.
No, it's a very pertinent one, but like, for example, like the folks who sell the scones, like,
Yeah.
I didn't mind having to talk to those guys, like. It's probably fine that they were selling the scones, but like they're selling food, like it's good for us to make sure they have the state permits, like yada, 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 health and safety. I think that level of oversight is not onerous, based on the load of applications we currently have.
But
Current-
somebody
current
with
reference
an
storage,
EV
not mistaken.
business, I mean, it's like, we're gonna have, be running into the weeds there. Like somebody reselling used stuff on eBay, I mean, it's like, they can have a,
Yeah, I mean, because the definition of it is very broad, and I know we're not captioning. But if you guys are happy doing it, I.
Well, why not?
Gabe is happy doing it.
Good. So that's, like she said, could just narrow the definition or be more specific, I guess. Definition.
Yeah, what I've written before is an exception for home office use that doesn't involve, any customers. Parking, et cetera.
How about the percentage of total income, if it's just a single side business, we don't know.
That's harder to check. out.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of anybody having to tell you their income to prove. it.
Yeah.
Right,
okay,
because
but-
most of them won't anyway.
Yeah.
And if they do, they'll.
Yeah. I'll be mad at it, I'll be mad about it,
Yeah,
and we don't really wanna know. So.
what you're concerned about with the home occupation is those external impacts. And if it's just somebody running an office out of their home, which is, 60% of people now. It seems like you just accept them.
Yeah, so we should probably just need to clarify the definition.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the short or the non-conforming lots and buildings, the way we have it in the shoreline buildings. If you're grandfathered, you can't do anything that would make you more non-conforming.
Yeah.
In the land, non-shoreland, it says you can, if you're grandfathered and you're non-conforming, you can use the whole property. Stay within your property so it doesn't limit you at all, basically. So I think we need to come up with this.
Just put it all under the shoreline zoning language.
Right, yeah.
You get so many properties that span shoreland and non-shoreland, and that gets so confusing.
Yeah.
When it's not conforming.
Re-looking at the 10,000 square feet for commercial. And I put this in here because in difference to what's going on with you, when we made that change, it was because we had done away with the definition of industrial use that was
Square footage.
buildings more than 10,000 square feet, and it was intended to restrict super Walmarts and Lowe's and those kind of things. And when we did away with that definition and just went with the commercial, started making commercial an entity upon itself, we added that restriction into the same area that it was before, but we didn't say build a 10,000 square foot building or structure. We just left 10,000, which I think really opens up. And some of the questions today, does it include the driveway going in? Does it include the roadway going in? Does it include, does it include your buffer area? So I think we just need to really look at that and make sure that we do have in fact what we want in there, which I don't think.
We need also to be consistent because that came, we didn't play for some applications and we considered 10,000 square feet total. Including the.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
When although what I'm really saying is that was not the intention. The intention was building. So, and we may want to keep it that way, but I think we need to relook at it. And then the final one is, and I'm only putting this in because I'm obligated to. Somebody asked us to prohibit RV campers on the riverside of 131. So we just need to, as a group, talk about that and come up with a consensus on whether.
Are campgrounds already prohibited in that district?
No.
Those prohibited campgrounds or just nobody can own a camper or RV?
And I remember this came out of the saltwater fields.
Yes, it did.
Permitting, and it was someone who was concerned with further development of that area into, I believe what she was worried about was campground.
Campgrounds, yeah, if a person can own a camper,
I think, but right now, parking R2, which that area is, I think it's either R1 or R2, but it's, you can do campgrounds with planning board approval. And so what she was suggesting is tents are okay, but RVs are not, and so she wanted to just.
And I can, if anybody who wasn't on the board needs to see what those letters were, I can just forward them around. There's a couple of letters. From,
Yeah, that would be great.
particular, fun reading.
So the select board, what select board did is they punted to the ordinance review committee and said, we'll give this to your review committee to take a look at it. So we are obligated.
Sorry, campgrounds are allowed in that area now?
Campgrounds are allowed. But they just don't, these, I think there were two of them, don't want to see campers.
But normally you ban a river.
Yeah. So,
I've got an issue up in Deer Isle right now with a camper style RV park that probably will end up looking nice, but the question is what is it? Is it a lodging facility? Is it a campground? You know,
So I think maybe that just like
Like
goes into that question of. Like people are concerned with all manner of like transient lodgings. We have to define some of them and regulate whichever of them we choose. With fun, we'll figure out what these things are.
and so when we have that discussion, I will kind of recuse myself since I had a Winnebago that I took last weekend. I'm taking next weekend to. So.
but do you park it on the riverside of one very?
You don't you ever park it. Fuel up the marathon.
Here, your first one, yes.
But it's either, and that one in my mind is an either, so. RVs look better than tents, but it's just me.
No ugly RVs, that's what.
That's right, no ugly RVs. Yeah, I think that's what they were actually getting to in those letters.
You've got a definition of ugly for us, right?
There's a campground, my general manager stayed at, that if it was older than like 10 years, it was an RV or camper. It was subject to inspection by their crew before you could park it in one of their sites.
No, kidding. That would be. So please look this over,
Yeah.
add to it, your thoughts. I think Herb is thinking that the ordinance review committee, which is right now Gabe and I, is going to give the planning board a list of changes to the ordinance. And then we're off and running like we did last time. That's literally what we did last time. We're not doing that this time. This is the intention is that the planning board is part and parcel of the changes that we.
Yes.
How can I help with this one? I'm not gonna go back and do anything on these points. It feels like the planning board needs to go through the list and look at the ordinance, talk about some policy things.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think you would be reviewing.
Yeah, if you've got something that pops into your mind that, oh, I wish South Thomaston had this in there. Or I wish they didn't. I wish they didn't have this.
I would suggest, don't try to write anything, but conceptualize some changes that you want to see made, and then I do the writing, figure out where it goes. It actually ends up more efficient.
Yeah, that worked out because we wrote a separate ordinance for the solar panel. And you said, no, and that worked out well.
You've got all the framework to have a good comprehensive land use ordinance, we just gotta get everything working together.
All right. All right, so 8 o'clock. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
So moved, all in favor, hallelujah. Thank you, everyone.
You know?